80s and 90s kids probably fondly remember planning out the next trip to the toy store. Back in the day, you didn't really have any tablets or the internet to just look up which kind of toys were out. All we could do was eagerly inspect all of the packaging that came with the toys, the little toy pamphlets, watch the cartoons and the commercials, announcing that next magnificent toy for your collection. Your favorite character would finally turn into a toy, and even though most toys that would get announced in a catalog would eventually turn up in your favorite toy store, some of them never did. In this episode of Unproduced Toys Part 2, we're gonna take a look at another 8 toys that were cancelled before they could hit the store shelves. How would the toys have looked? Why weren't they released? And a lot more on Ed's Retro Geek Out, so strap in for some toy history. The year was 1987, and Hasbro had just planned to add another celebrity as a member of the G.I. Joe team. Rocky Balboa had just defeated Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren, in the 4th movie, so you know, Sylvester Stallone had all the qualities required to be a real American hero. Plans were made to create a toy, and Rocky Balboa had already appeared in G.I. Joe's Order of Battle comic book by Marvel. Heck, they even had the card art and all the file card info ready to go for this toy. Then, the negotiations between Hasbro and Sylvester Stallone fell through, because Stallone had already lent his image for Coleco's Rambo toy line. The comic had to print a retraction, and the toy was never made due to a non-compete clause in the Coleco contract that Sylvester Stallone had previously signed.
Girl, this is where I get off.
But there were some unpainted sculpts out there really resembling Sylvester Stallone's likeness. It would have been a lot better than what Coleco did with the Rambo line, I do believe. So G.I. Joe would continue to battle Cobra, but without having boxing legend Rocky Balboa to tag team along. Now Cobra, of course, knowing that G.I. Joe was going to have this new heavy hitter on the team, they were going to retaliate, and retaliate they did with Big Boa. Rocky Balboa? Big Boa? Kind of obvious. With this figure, Cobra would have had the perfect opponent for Rocky Balboa, and this figure did eventually go into production. And from one Hasbro line, we're going to head into a less popular one, Visionaries.
Visionaries from Hasbro.
During the second wave of the Visionaries toy line, they had envisioned to release Iron Mountain, the Holodrome. This would have been the home of Merklin, the mysterious wizard that would grant magical powers to the two factions battling it out. On one side, you had the Spectral Knights, and on the other side you had the Darkland Lords. The toy line was ready to expand with a second wave, and of course you needed a playset to have all these figures battling it out. So as announced in the 1988 toy catalog, we would see this massive playset dubbed the Iron Mountain, featuring a special holographic effect showing the ghostly image of Merklin. Kids would actually be able to place their hands inside of the 3D image that was generated by this toy. You would have 2 hidden trap doors, lots of caves to hide in, and of course falling rocks for slip and slide action. There would also be a microphone, sort of like Snake Mountain, so you could speak in Merklin's voice.
For those who succeed, the rewards are very great.
There would be detachable hover pods and 2 gunner stations in the mountain's tower wherein you could fit 1 figure. And even though the second wave has been speculated that it did come out in Europe, it didn't, guys. I've seen nothing out here. No second wave of Visionaries whatsoever. Now, it has been confirmed that the toy was ready to get made in the factory in China. Everything was done for this playset, but unfortunately they didn't get to pop this puppy into production. The toy could have been the perfect toy version of the Visionaries origin stories, but with the costs already being so high for the regular figures, because you know, the gimmick of the toy is the little holograms, and this in combination with the cartoon series and the comic book getting cancelled kind of ended the franchise. It's just too bad they didn't get to envision any of that on one of those 3-dimensional polymers.
I think we've been deceived.
Another toy line suffering the same fate as the Visionaries has got to be the Sectaurs. For these warriors of Symbion, the second wave would have featured Sectaurs' female star, Stellara. The Sectaurs was a line of action figures released by Coleco in 1985. It had a Marvel comic and a cartoon show, but didn't do too well, even though they had a really cool gimmick with insect-like hand puppets that kids could bring to life with their own hands, and a rather killer playset that did come out with the Hive. That's one good looking playset right there. The complete second wave of toys did get cancelled, but would have featured Stellara, Prince Dargon's love interest, even though she did play a huge role in the comic book written by Bill Mantlo, who also created Rocket Raccoon. The figure in prototype form was announced in catalogs where she would have sported a similar color scheme as Dargon, so it would not have been the colors that we knew from the comic book. She would have come with a companion buck and similar weapons as the previous figures released for the line. Rhinox would have been the action buck with a headbutt feature, and her weapons would have been a skull dagger, a shield, and a vent gun. The line did get cancelled due to poor sales. Some of the figures were pretty gruesome, and moms across the world probably didn't want those little buck type things in their homes back in the 80s. Coleco did take a lot of effort sculpting these figures with lots of detail, and you know when you have lots of details going on in the sculpting and high quality of your toys, the production costs go up, that price tag goes up, probably pricing them out of the market. Although I seem to remember most of these toys being out in the discount bins when I saw them back in the day. In 2019, a Kickstarter by Zika Toys gave the franchise a new hope, but Stellara is still stuck somewhere in the endless web of unproduced toys. Next up is one of my favorite toy lines, Street Sharks, and here we got Clamando. Even though this character is called Clamando, this Street Shark villain is actually a half-man, half-oyster mutant. The only mutant creature to not be created by Dr. Paradigm, because this was basically a dock worker who fell into a nearby dock where they were dumping some toxic waste. Not that they really explain it in the show why they were dumping toxic waste there. Now there seem to be two variations of the prototype out there, one in black and white as was featured in one of the last toy catalogs featuring the Street Sharks, and another one in green and purple, more like one of the versions we have seen in the cartoon, although this version did not have any of the crazy eyes. The toy would have had pearl grenades and could protect itself by closing its shell. And even when closing its shell, it would still remain to have full visibility due to his funny looking eye sculpts functioning as periscopes when he's in full shell mode.
A pearl of wisdom!
Street Sharks moved away from the toy aisles as the spin-off show Extreme Dinosaurs sort of took over and got more attention. Now as a Street Shark collector, I would have actually loved to see Clamando become an actual toy that was released in the vintage line. I would have wanted more characters instead of variations of the already produced ones, from one mutant toy line to another. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Hot Rodding Ninja Mobile assortment. This was featured in the 1994 Playmates catalog and kind of tied in with some of the monster trucks and wheeled monsters that I used to own back in the day as a kid. The idea was simple. You got a pullback car, but hub weapons would pull out as well. As described in the toy catalog, what do they got? Cool funny car stylings, that's what. And realistic front suspension with awesome hot rod details. Is that enough for you? How about pullback motors? Yep. So these motorized mobiles can perform radical wheelies. The custom Party Hardy Wacky Wagon kicks into gear and defends the Party Pal passengers with nunchucks that pop out of the hubs. And then on the villain side of things, you would have Shredder riding its own mutant module. The massive hot rodding macho mutant module cuts deep into crime with blades that pull out of the hubs. Now figures weren't included with this, but you did get some kind of a staff accessory attached to the toy where you could place your toy onto when it would kick into action. The toy would not get spun around inside of the car or would get kicked out of the car because of the wheelie action going on. Now it is kind of odd that they did go for the Party Wagon and the Mutant module. Probably those were more known to kids, but the hot rodding name immediately jumps to mind when you think about the hot rodding teenagers from Dimension X. So it's kind of odd that they did not go for one of those hovering Cadillacs that those teenagers from Dimension X were driving in.
Relax, April, they're cool!
It does actually remain a mystery why this was not released. I mean, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line had merchandise for everything, so why couldn't a toy car be produced that you could have your action figures ride in? It's strange. It's strange. But not as strange as as the Skeleton Warriors Bone Dragon. Now to me, Skeleton Warriors is a Playmates toy line that has some of the best sculpts in the business. One toy that never got to be would have been a Bone Dragon of epic proportions. This toy figure would have been 13 inches tall and fully articulated. Spring-powered blasters would have come with it, as well as metallized armor. It could hold up to 3 figures, come with a real light star crystal, and that deadly skeleton detailing we all love. This would have been known as Baron Dark's deadly dungeon dragon. The ground shakes and sky darkens as Baron Dark rides Morgor, his massive bone dragon, onto the battlefield. Covered with metallized blade armor that cuts down the legions of light with ease, the bone dragon is the most feared battle beast in the Skeleton Legion arsenal. Equipped with blasters and a dungeon ribcage, the bone dragon is constantly on patrol for any unlucky skeleton warrior who may fall within its shadow. Now, it is at one of the designer cons that one of the prototypes surfaced, although this one was not sporting any of the recognizable classic gold chrome accessories and armor. Neither did it have any of the projectile launchers on the figure or any other things really, showing it. It was, as it were, the bare-boned Bone Dragon. Now, the Skeleton Warriors line got cancelled because of all the violence in the cartoons and the dead atmosphere surrounding the toys. Seems like the cartoons never found the right audience, and parents preferred the brighter Mighty Morphin Power Ranger toys that were big at the time in 1994. Even though Power Rangers also had moms going crazy about all of the violence that was in the show, at least the figures didn't represent death. Time to shrink it down from one of the giant toys to one of the smallest toy characters out there. Mighty Max. Let's just keep it the way it was. The Warmonger Mega Head is an unreleased battle fortress originally intended for release in 1996. The playset was cancelled alongside the other Mighty Max into the Battlezone series of toys. This would have been the 4th wave, but none made it past the prototype stage. Now, the whole Into the Battlezone line would have been forgotten if it wasn't for those meddling Mighty Max fans who rediscovered the toy line when one of the toy line designers posted details including a pictorial SKU, a stock keeping unit, on the Mighty Max Archives forum. The Into the Battlezone line would have featured an older looking Max. It would have allowed Mighty Max to continue story-wise, but also be a little bit different. Warmonger is the chief general working for the Skullmaster, a brutish looking humanoid, also appearing in the TV show It Was Time for his own playset. And this playset would have featured Mighty Max, Warmonger, a insect monster, and a Skullmaster's head? What you would have gotten was a slightly bigger Mighty Max playset. A base would open up. You would need to pull out one of the horns to create 2 staircases, so you could go from the bottom base to 2 platforms in each side of the head. The staircases would lead you to the higher levels and lots of other deadly booby traps. And honestly, it's too bad they had to pull the plug on this second iteration of Mighty Max, because it would have been really cool to see this character develop even more. And this is one for the bronies. Yeah, guys, there was a unreleased playset in the My Little Pony line. The concept art for the Flutter Pony playset was shown on the My Little Pony fair in 2016. Rude Bush, one of the G1 Hasbro My Little Pony artists, actually brought along her concept art and some pictures of the actual prototype. The concept would have been a little cottage in the clouds that the Flutter Ponies could use to manipulate the weather. The base was sculpted with white clouds and a little window that you could open up showing a spinner with different types of weather on it. What the frick is a Flutter Pony? The Flutter Pony is known as a race of winged ponies, unlike the Pegasus, but with butterfly wings that could control the weather loosely. It was loosely based on weather controlling ponies, and you could actually see this on the back of the cards that these ponies came on. Now, why was this playset not released in the G1 line? It felt too soon to release another playset next to the Paradise Estate, which was already an expensive playset, so maybe they didn't think parents would go for another playset for their kids. The Flutter Ponies were also known for breaking the wings easily. These butterfly wings were translucent and broke quite easily, and popping these guys toys into a house would probably have them break even more, but it would have actually made sense for them to release another playset to cash in on the success of the movie or the sequel. And that's it for this week's toy history. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on next week's episode. Please leave a like on the video, and as always, you can comment any other toy lines I should be taking a closer look into, maybe for an upcoming episode. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!